there, Peter Buswell from drvoip.com. Today we're going to take a quick look at what's new in ShoreTel version 12. We have made a lot of changes since version 8, which in and itself was a significant change from the 7 somewhat previous releases of ShoreTel. At ShoreTel 8, we made a change from access to the MySQL database, changed our look and feel, and as we moved through 10 and 10.2, we began to really hammer out those capabilities that have become more fully formed in version 11.2 and 12. So there are many new features, and this presentation is not on features, but a little bit more on the architectural issues. Primarily, we're looking at the capability now of distributing workgroups. As you recall in previous releases, if you lost your headquarters server, you lost your ability to have workgroups function. At the headquarters, obviously it's down, and at your distributed voicemail service, those workgroups would be down, and if you did best practice deployment, they would be backed up by hunt groups and everything would be fine. As we move through 10.2 into 11 and 12, you now have the ability to distribute workgroups such that if the headquarters server is down, workgroups will continue to function in your distributed voicemail servers. You have the ability to distribute databases. Now, one of the things about a database that should be obvious to everybody is that when there can only be one read-write copy of a database, right? So if I'm going to make a change, I have to make it on that read-write copy, and then it's copied off to my distributed databases. With distributed database capability, we now assure that if a headquarters server is down, generally the master read-write copy of the database, we can still make changes to the databases at our DVMs. Principally, these changes are database changes associated with call handling modes. You may have had a headquarters failure and not been able to change your call handling mode from out of office to standard, for example, or to have a schedule affect a change from your off hours to your on hours auto attendant. With distributed database capability, we can now do that. There are still some issues here. For example, you cannot have both distributed workgroups and distributed databases. You can't do that. You got to pick one or the other. I like to go with the distributed database over the workgroup. If my workgroups fail, I can have my hunt groups back it up. But I'll tell you what, there's nothing more frustrating than having a distributed workgroup that is in fact functioning, but your users cannot log in because it happened that the headquarters server failed in the wee hours of the morning when everybody was logged out. So pay attention here. There are some new switch types that we'll take a look at. Of course, we began with 11 to introduce the new browser-based communicator. Those of you who are familiar with the personal call manager, it is now the ShoreTel communicator. And this is a reference to the fact that it can be browser-based now, so you Mac users finally have a shot at seeing some of the benefits of using a GUI call control. And last but not least, we have virtual server support. So I think those are the key areas architecturally in the system, and let me deep down show you a few by logging into the system. Ever wonder where the white goes when the snow melts? Okay, so what we're looking at here, I'm going to work backwards and show you that the demonstration is being run on a virtual server. So if we look up here, you'll notice that I have a number of virtual machines, not the least of which is the ShoreTel headquarters server. I also have a ShoreTel headquarters DVM server. I'm going to go over here to the console tab. This is not a tutorial on VMware. I just want you to see that we are on a virtual machine. We're going to right-click here, go to Guest, and say Control-Alt-Delete. And down here we will log in using the famous Change Me. And this is going to bring up our desktop inside the virtual server. So over here on the desktop, we're running a 2008 instance. I'm going to click on the Shoreware Director icon. This is not where I'm going to show you the rest of the directory. I just want to establish that we are on a virtual machine. And down here you can see we're on an early version of ShoreTel 12. I'll go ahead and log in. And you'll notice that we have Hollywood, Bollywood. We have our ECC server, some other servers, a 50B switch. Not easy to see inside this console. I'm going to take you to the browser in just a second, but I do want you to see that this is done on a virtual machine. Here's my Hollywood DBM, my headquarters server. We actually have our production system running on ShoreTel. So let me take you over to the browser. Okay, we've got our browser pointing to our local machine. We're on a Windows 2008 Service Pack 2. By the way, that's a 64-bit machine running in a virtual environment. And as you can see, no tricks here. We're looking at the same set of resources I showed you on the virtual machine. And if you look down the list of links, you will notice that in version 12 we did make a bit of a change. This interface should be very familiar to anybody that's been working with ShoreTel for any period of time, but there are a few changes. So consistent with the first slide, let me point out some of the new differences. One, you'll see the Communicator. And we click on Communicator, we find global toolbars and notifying users. We'll notice, however, that there's something missing. Yeah, I don't see switches, do you? But I do see something called platform hardware. Platform hardware actually does contain our voice switches, but it now contains server applications and conference bridges. When we go to add a new switch, we do so pretty much by selecting a primary or a spare. And when we select primary, we'll find out that we have a long list of switch types here, and consistent with the way ShoreTel has always done things, you can select the site you want to drop that into. But you're going to notice here that we have some new switch types, and the one that's most interesting is a new switch type called Appliance 100. And basically what this is a new conference server capability, which we will discuss at a later date. But what's exciting about this conference server is that it installs in ShoreTel as if it were a ShoreTel switch. The interface, the installation, the configuration of this very clever conference server is done entirely through the switch installation interface, and it installs very similar to the ShoreTel switch installation that you've been following all along. So that's one of the key differences about the list of links on the left-hand side of the page. We do have an audio and web conferencing interface and an IM interface, but these clearly reference other capabilities in the system because the new conference server is up here under platform hardware and it installs under primary. If we look at Workgroups, we'll notice that we add a workgroup principally as we did before, but you now have the ability to select a workgroup server. And this is principally how we establish the modality of a distributed workgroup. So let me now take you away from the concept of the distributed workgroup because they're very interrelated. Again, you can choose either a distributed workgroup or a distributed database. And the workgroups will continue to function if they are on a server different than the failed headquarters server. The issue of call handling modes, you still need to pay attention to that. So let me show you that if we go over here to application servers, headquarters DBS servers. So here is where I've created my, for example, my headquarters server is here, and it has the same functionality and attribute definition that we've seen in previous versions. What is different, however, is when we look at the distributed voicemail server, in this case my ECC server, you will now see a checkbox that says enable local database, or use the database on the server, in this case local or headquarters. Now the default mode is headquarters, but you can enable database replication over here on the distributed voicemail server. But should the headquarters server go down, these people will be able to make changes to their call handling mode, which is very exciting if you've ever experienced that type of annoying outage. This is a real benefit. In these last 60 seconds, let me show you what it looks like when you log in, bring up your communicator through a browser. So I'm using, in this case, Apple's Safari browser. There are two login modes. If you just go to the IP address of your server, it's expecting that you're using Active Directory login. If you're not using Active Directory login, but only a short-lived director database for your credentials, then it's just go ahead and type IP address /login. This will bring you to this page. Got a user Al Pacino, and it just brings up an entire call manager inside the browser, complete with call handling modes, ability to do configure your external assignment. You can size and shape him pretty much like you would any other communicator. You've got your history tab, your voicemail tab, inbox, saved, deleted. It's just very way cool. So you can use this in Safari and IE8 and Firefox. So I hope you have found this informative, and I thank you for viewing.